Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy entrepreneurs, professionals, and business owners publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable experts across the country and even on your town. Joining me on this segment is Jim King. He's the founder of King Piers, with a fascinating interview on a really interesting, not so well known topic. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Jim, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically, who are the types of folks that you help?
We get calls. The last few years has been calls when I go to the house. The problem is the guys mowing the yard and they look next to the foundation. They see the horizontal load-bearing beam poking through, means the wall's leaning inward. So what I did is I've copyrighted it's not patented, but I've copyrighted a methodology on how to properly push a wall that's leaning back vertically level. And the other methodologies to it is the anchors, where they drill a hole in your wall. You might have 100 cracks in your wall, but they'll still come in and drill a big hole to put a bolt running at a 45-degree angle out into the yard, a plate, washer, and a nut. Then they crank the nut and it straightens the wall. The problem is it doesn't keep it straight. It's a good methodology to straighten it but I don't like drilling the holes in the wall. That's causing further destruction to the wall. So what we do is with just simple hydraulics and 6x6 treated wood support beams with a bottle jack on the end of it bolted to it. We bolt to the floor angle iron, and that's our pushing platform. Get our laser levels set up. We've already raised the house slightly up off the top of the wall with hydraulics and 6x6 treated wood support beams. On the outside of the wall, we can push the wall against air, but not dirt. So we've already dug down to the footing. It's a matter of just a few minutes of making that wall perfectly vertical. And then after we straighten it, we pier the footing with our King Pier 2s. I've got 5 piers, King Pier 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We use a King Pier 2 generally on normal size houses. I got to eliminate all future movement. And the movement's going to start generally with the footing, either sinking, tilting, breaking. All the foundation, people don't realize this. They might buy a house that's $2 million house, but the concrete is low strength concrete. It's 2,500 pound concrete. And if you put 2,500 pound concrete and 4,000 or 5,000 pound concrete in a wheelbarrow, visually, you can't tell the difference. But the low strength concrete is what they use. Everything is built to the standard minimum. In Chicago, Kansas City, if I buy a lot and I got to get a permit to go build a home, first thing you're going to do is dig a hole and pour your footing and build your foundation. I got to get a permit for that. And they're going to tell you the minimum you can build everything from your footing up to your walls. And here in Kansas City, I'm not sure in Chicago what the minimum is, but generally footings holding up big houses are only 2 foot wide, 8 inches thick of low strength concrete. That's it. So what happens is in time, the soil underneath them settles, they break, causes the house to become uneven, cracks in the drywall, doors, windows don't open, shut, whatever.
So Jim, you created your own methodology. What specifically did you find wrong with other options that have been previously available to people?
Well, here's a real good example. If your wall's leaning in, if you got a 7 foot tall concrete wall and it's leaning in 1.5 inches, and you call a structural engineer, a licensed structural engineer, he'll come out and he'll look at it. They're all cookie cutters. They will basically take $300 or $400 of your money and give you a diagram, tell you to put in an I-beam. They don't tell you really how to put them in, but they will show locking it in at the top, bolted to the ceiling joist. What that does is it splits the joist. You're paying somebody to tear up your house. They don't saw cut the floor. The floor's sitting on 1/3 of the footing. You've got footing, wall, floor. So the floor's sitting on about 8 inches of footing. They'll just jackhammer an odd-shaped hole just to expose the footing, sit the beam on that, concrete it back in. Without that simple step of saw cutting, which nobody does but King Piers here in Kansas City, it's going to cause little fractures in the basement floor that you're not there. The floor's fine, but you're going to cause cracks, and caused the floor to fail, eventually place for water to come in. So we do everything engineering 101. I'm the only piering foundation repair contractor. There's a guy in New Jersey that videotapes everything he does. He's a little different than me. He tries to be a comedian. He throws out the F-bombs and cuss words and stuff, and I don't do that. I want everything legit. We're just trying to show the world proper engineering sound foundation repair, which nobody's getting. Trillions of dollars of people's hard-earned money, honest to God, have just been thrown away. I'm not kidding. I looked at a house. It's been a few months ago. My son schedules all my bids, and I go out and look at this house in Blue Springs. They already spent $55,000 with a well-known, you know who they are if I say their name, but I'm not going to say their name, endorsed by Major League Baseball players. Their pier was called it's called a cable lock system, which is basically a concrete pill that's about a foot tall, about that big around, with a hole in it with cable steel running through it. They put that underneath the footing. Lifetime guarantee that the house would not settle any further. In about 2 years, the house settled another 3 inches. Walls leaned back in. They used the bolts, the anchors. They're back leaning in 6 inches. People are very frustrated. They call me, and this happens frequently. They call me, and I go out there, and I as I'm walking up the house, I see odd shaped square holes jackhammered in the driveway, and they've screwed up the driveway. And I just noticed the porch is off. I go inside, they show me everything, and everything that they paid is failed. They called them back out previously before I went out there, and they claim no responsibility. The lifetime guarantee is not worth used toilet paper. People don't realize that. They will get out of it, whatever it takes to get out of it, they'll get out of it. So anyway, my comment to the homeowners, I said, well, who done you've already had this all done. Who'd you use? And I said, I named off a couple of people, and it was the first one I named off who they used. And I said, well, did you call them out here? And he said, yeah. And they claim no responsibility. And I said, well, did you win the Powerball? And he said, no. And I said, well, I didn't either. I said, but you got the money to pay to have this done right? He said, no. And I said, I didn't reckon you did. I said, you got ripped off. I said, the only thing I can do is expose them. What you need to do is call my office, schedule a time, call them back out there. I'll have my marketing team behind me, which is one person holding a GoPro, videotaping everything. And I tell them everything they've done wrong, and as polite as I can. And sometimes people don't like to hear what they've done wrong, because they've taught this is the way it's done. They're all cookie cutters. And, you take an average blue collar guy, he works 35 years, retires, and he's got $150,000 in the bank. And some cookie cutter, he's got some foundation issues. And oftentimes it's a small repair. And if they got a crack in the wall, they'll get sold piers to put under the footing. It's ridiculous. The house is level. Footings haven't failed. So it's just people get lied to. It's, to me, the foundation repair industry here in Kansas City is the most fraudulent, corrupt. It's just people are getting paid to tear up houses and basements, and they walk away from it. If you look at the small print in their contracts, you take them to court, you're going to lose. That's a shame. So it is what it is, but I don't do that. I can't sleep at night giving somebody something that's not engineering sound. I've put in close to 25,000 piers, King Pier 1 through 5. I don't know how many of each, but close to 25,000 of them. I've never had a call where someone's called and said, yeah, you piered my house. Now the garage doors are cockeyed. I can't open, I've never got a call where, and I'm expecting it, because every customer and their name is stored in my phone. And so when I get a phone call from a previous customer and it says customer on there, I'm expecting bad news, but I've never had that call. It's usually another issue or that has nothing to do with what I did, thank God. But let's just say there will be a time something will happen. The soil is not that. I might be a house built on top of a cave and I'm not aware of it. Who knows? I will be there like white on rice. They call my office. I'll be there no later than the next morning to address it. And I won't have my hand out saying, pay me more money to put piers in. I've made enough money over the years to replace a pier or two would not bother me one iota because they don't fail. But I do not go to bedrock. My theory is, as I told you, everything's built to the standard minimum. If they would build things like footings here in Kansas City, if they would build footings instead of 2 foot wide, 8 inches thick, if they build them 4 foot wide, 3 foot thick, there'd be no piering companies. Nothing would sink. You've got enough mass right there that's going to hold your structure. And but everything's built to the minimum. Thus, people need us. And the problem is there's not enough of king piers to go around. I got another company I'm involved with that uses my piering system out of St. Louis. There's another company in Cincinnati that uses my piers. And then I got a local company here that I just basically helped the guy create that's going to buy my piers. And right now he's worked with me. He goes behind king. When I pier a house, my cookie cutter competition will leave a big mess in the yard. I don't. I come back after I backfill the wall. You've got a big pile of dirt there, maybe 2 or 3 foot taller than the rest of the yard. I pulverize it. I compact it as we go. It's beautiful when we're done. I got before and after photos and videos, so I put everything back as it was. And thus that gets, here's the thing. House is sunk 3 inches. I come in there and pier the house. And I raise it, make everything level. I do all the drywall repair for free, which is built into my piering price. So we're in the people's house doing proper drywall repair, tape and mud and all that after we've raised the footing back up. But let's say I do a bad job on that free tape and mud. I may not get a 5-star review, and I've done what nobody in the country can do. You know what I mean? So everything I do is professional, and that's why I videotape everything. Everything I do is videotape from start to finish. You go to my YouTube channel and check that out. But yeah, I've got 700 or 800 videos of all of our jobs. So,
Jim, that's incredibly impressive. Just your wealth of knowledge, and I love hearing the passion that you have behind your workmanship. Jim, how did you get started in this industry? What inspired you, and what inspired you to start King Piers?
Well, I'm actually about the 3rd generation in foundation repair. And my grandfather done some foundation repair and basically done the same things that the cookie cutters did. So I've been an employee as a kid growing up through high school and college doing cookie cutter type stuff that I was told to do, didn't know any difference. Then after college, and I come from Clarkson Construction, which I'm a road and bridge guy, actually is what my expertise is in besides foundations. So a civil engineer and a structural engineer don't see eye to eye on things. There's been many now Norton and Schmidt structural engineers backs and stamps my piering system. They called me, I didn't call them, but I butt heads with them a few times throughout the years, every year on a certain project. Well, somebody will pay them. The last job I had was over in Hallbrook, was where a major league baseball player used to live, George Brett. I'm not sure if he lives in Hallbrook anymore, but he used to live there. So it's a really nice neighborhood. And the guy's got 7 kids. The youngest kid's a KU senior, and they all have one thing in common when they get together on holidays. They all play golf. So he took this room in his basement and he wanted to make it into a golf room. So all 7 people could line up and hit golf balls. And so we went in there and done that. And the guy told me what he wanted. I wrote everything down. I came back to my house, I sat down here at the table I'm at right now, and I wrote him out a bid and had my son type it up. Next thing you know, he says, "Oh, we're going to use you." I said, "All right." He never mentioned he had paid Norton and Schmidt a couple $1,000 to draw up some plans for this little project. So we go in there, step 1, and we start saw cutting the floor. And here comes walking in an engineer from Norton and Schmidt. And he hands me these plans and wants me to do all this extra stuff that I didn't have planned. And basically what it was doing is he wanted me to undermine in different times. You can't undermine a whole wall footing because it would collapse, but 4-foot sections on about a 30-foot length wall, 4-foot undermine underneath the footing and drill a hole through the bottom of the footing and through the wall to stick a number 4 piece of rebar in there. And I said, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to. I said, that guy, them footings, do you not realize them footings is 2,500 pound concrete? Do you not realize there's 2 number 4 rebars running horizontally through the footings? I said, I can take a bit that'll cut through rebar and steel, but I said, do you realize it's not going to just drill nice, smooth hole right through it. It's going to break the footing. I'm going to hammer a piece of rebar in there to do what your drawings say to do. Now the footing's broke. And so what do we backfill it with? Obviously concrete, but still the footing is broken and the footing can tilt, do this. So anyway, I told the homeowner, I said, listen, I didn't know you paid these guys for these blueprints and stuff, but I said, I refuse to tear up your basement. And I said, that's what you've paid these guys to have me do. And I said, Benz, I didn't know about it. I said, it's a Friday. I said, right now all you owe me for is the saw cutting. I said, if you want me to continue, I'm not going to continue. You can hire somebody else, some other cookie cutter out there to come and do what these guys want. But I'm telling you right now, I'll be in your life yearly because I'm going to break that wall, and I'm going to break that wall because I'm drilling a hole through it. There's number 4 rebars running vertically and horizontally through that. I'm going to crack it. I'm going to crack it. I may not crack through the interior, but it's going to crack to the outside. Eventually that is going to all be finished, and that crack's going to reappear and it's going to leak water. We're going to tear out the drywall. You've called King Piers back, but yet I'm going to point my finger. You had me do it the way they did. So anyway, I told him, listen, get somebody else. No problems. Just pay me for the saw cutting. I'll walk away. You think about it over the weekend. He called me that evening and said, me and my wife talked about it. And we're going to go with the way you want to do it. We just think it makes more sense. So I have things like that happen 2 or 3 times a year with various structural engineers. But you go to a house that's leaning in, I think I got off the subject. They'll tell you to put an I-beam, a wall that's leaning in 1.5 inches, and to lock it in with a piece of angle iron. It splits. I did mention it, but it does. It splits it. So you're paying a structural engineer to give you a copy of how to do something, but it's basically, think about this. You got a wall brace that's perfectly vertical and a wall that's leaning in. How much of that wall is touching that wall brace? Just that much at the very top. The wall sitting on the footing. The footing could have slid to make the wall go like that. So the wall brace, they've sold them a bill of goods. So I'm going to straighten the wall. I propose to straighten the wall. My wall braces, I use an H-beam. I lock them in with a 6x6 treated board, support beam bolted from the sides. I sister on 3 foot on both sides of whatever board it is, bolted from the sides. Everything I do is engineering. At the end of that 3 foot, another 6x6 treated wood support beam bolted in there. It keeps it's overkill, and you can't go wrong with overkill. It doesn't cost that much more money to cut a few pieces of wood and bolt them to the joist.
No, so, I like that thought. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So
the one thing I tell my customers, unless you invite me to a birthday party or something, I never want to see you again. At the grocery store, I want to, hi, how are you doing? That's good. But most of my cookie cutters, they run the opposite direction when they recognize a customer. I don't, because I never have no problems. If anybody, say we go in and do a simple water, we do a lot of things besides straighten walls and pier houses. Stone foundation renovations. I do a lot of historic homes. I'm well known for that here in town. We turn homes that you walk into it. Somebody's selling an old 100-year-old home. They walk in the basement and it's stone, and you got pieces of it laying all over the ground because it hadn't been taken care of in 100 years. We go in there and turn those into the Taj Mahal for pennies on the dollar, really, for a big home, big 2,500 square foot, 3-story stone foundation home. For about 15 grand, we can go in there and make that basement, the entire basement. The wall's beautiful, waterproof, more structurally sound. The floors are beautiful. We coat them, we seal all the cracks. Sometimes we need to remove and replace. You got to remember, floors in a 100-year-old home is only about 2 inches thick. So, and here's another example of ripping people off. You get a 100-year-old home, they call it one of my cookie cutter competitions, or getting water in the basement. You can visually see water that's come down through the stone 3 and 4 feet up from the basement. They'll want to put them in a sump pump. I'll go over there after the sump pump's in, and I'll say, well, why didn't they do something to the walls? Because they didn't know that methodology no one but me does, of coating them walls. You got to come in there. We start off step one and we wire brush the walls with wire brushes, get all the loose surface off, clean that up. We shop vac the walls, get all the dust off of it. Then we come in there with a bonding agent with a Hudson sprayer, and we spray the walls down. Then we mix up a King Piers recipe that I came up with about 15 years ago, and we've made it better and better and better throughout the years. Then we use basically sponges, and we mix up the concrete and we just sponge the wall. We can either do that or spray it. I've got a sprayer, so we're kind of experimenting with that. But basically, by the time you're done, it looks exactly the same. I'm just trying to find a way to do it faster. But that's how we do it. And then we let that dry, and then I come in with bare waterproofing paint, and we coat the walls. And so it's a bright white. We clean everything up. The floors are all painted. Cracks are all fixed, patches if needed, but the floors are so thin. But a sump pump won't do you any good in a historic home, or any home that doesn't have rock underneath the floor. If you don't have rock underneath the floor and you put it in one corner of your basement, it's just going to collect water right around that area where your sump pump's put. It's not going to take care of the whole basement. So a lot of times people, they make a little money putting in a sump pump. They're good at it. So that's their solution for anything for water intrusion. So what I would have told the people, sump pump ain't going to do you no good. What you need is a King Piers stone foundation renovation. Then I explained to them what I just explained to you, the wire brushes down to coating it and painting it, and from there to start to finish. And then we'll go and do it. And you can see on my website and YouTube the before and afters, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Jim, you're a wealth of knowledge and an obvious expert in the subject that people need to meet. How can folks listening right now that know they need your help, how can they find you, learn more, and connect with you?
You can the best way to get a hold of me is to contact my son, Matt, at 1-816-288-4373. You can go to our website, kingpiers.com. That's KINGPIERS.com. You can click on the button, schedule a bid. We'll get the information and it'll be scheduled. I'll show up and I'll tell you what needs to be done. Generally, I will add, people hand me, as soon as I walk in, they've already had a structural engineer's report. I just fold it nice and neat in 3 or 4, I put it in my pocket. I don't care what they have to say because I know what they're going to say. So I tell them, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to call a structural engineer to tell you what's wrong, but I will determine what's wrong with your house and my bid will reflect it. So
Jim, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today your vast knowledge on the subject. And I wish you continued success for you, for King Piers, and for all of your clients. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you. Good luck to you.
Jim King, that's the founder of King Piers. This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy entrepreneurs, professionals, and business owners publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. Thanks for joining me. I'm Mark Imperial.